Um, Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, sorry for the delay. The meeting is recording now.
All right, can we get started with the class?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So good evening, guys. We'll be continuing from where we stopped on Monday, but before then, we'll just have a brush over what we did on Monday for those that missed the class and stuff like that. Before we continue, hope you can hear me very clear. Can you see my screen? Hello, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So on Monday we talked about the different ways we can style CSS in our HTML documents. I use the inline CSS, the internal CSS, and the external CSS. After that, we talked about how to style elements in CSS, where we talk about styling by calling the element or the tag. Then we also talked about styling by using the class name, the ID, and then we talked about group styling. We also talked about colors, how to create colors in CSS by the name, RGBs, and stuff like that. So today we are going to be continuing our class because we don't have much time. We have to cover basic CSS and box model today. So we'll just dive right into the class. Continue from where we stop. I hope we are following. All right, so today we are going to be discussing CSS units. Yeah. We're going to be talking about CSS units. And what are CSS units? CSS units are the units we use in defining sizes of something. I want something to look like. That's what we call units. We have different units in CSS. We have what we call the one we call pixel. We have or that's like the absolute unit we use in CSS. It's called pixels. Then we have other relative units like percentage, em, rem, vh, and vw. So we'll be talking about them one after the other before we go on. Now let's start with the absolute units. We'll still be using this our content from Monday, this H1 hello world. We'll be using it to explain how we use units in CSS.
Yeah, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, your tutor is offline. I don't know what's happening. So I am just going to take off from where he left, and I'll be sharing my screen in a minute. Please just give me a few seconds. Christian is on fire, but can you see my screen? All right. So for the past weeks, we have been talking about uh, the internet and how you receive content from the internet in terms of files through your browsers and protocols that we saw during the first week of the bootcamp. And we went further to see how this data travels from a particular server right up to your browser in the form of files. And some of these files we made mention of where the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, and so on. So we went right down to talk about Git. We saw Git and we saw how we could use Git to collaborate with one or two team members with whom we are both working on a single project. And we also went further to see how we can use Git to control different versions of our code. And not only that, we went further to look at our very first structural language, which is HTML. We went further to see how we can structure content on the browsers using this particular, not a language, but some sort of hypertext that gives us room to be able to organize how we want information to be placed on our browsers, on our web pages per se. And not only that, today we are moving forward to see something really interesting. Your tutor for CSS had started this, so where we start looking at how we beautify our web pages, sort of the web pages that we created with the HTML were called static web pages. They are just there, just empty content. And we went ahead to see how we write this content and display them on the browsers. And so today we are going to be looking at how we beautify this structure that we have actually created using HTML, which is CSS. So today we are diving straight into CSS, and I'll be talking a little bit about the introduction to CSS. And we are going to have Ru who will dive into other sections of other parts of CSS. So what is CSS? Now, just as we saw that HTML is all about the structure of a web page. The structure we mean by when you write your HTML code from what you have seen in the past weeks, you sort of like need to add beauty, need to add a feel to this structure, to the content you have actually displayed on your web browser. CSS is that sort of a language, I'll put it, but it's not really a language. It is that concept that comes in to make sure that you add beauty, you add flesh to this structure that you have actually built using HTML. So CSS in all stands for cascading style sheets. So it makes this our websites beautiful and some sort of interactive. Can make buttons to hover, to glow, you know, those kind of things. This is what CSS is able to give us. This is how CSS is able to add some beauty to our HTML. So we are going to, work with code so that we really see how we can interact with this CSS. So CSS only interacts with HTML. So we are going to see how we do that. And so we are going to see how we do that and see how we add this beauty to the CSS. I'm just going to fast forward to where your tutor actually ended. So I'm going to share my screen with my VS Code open, so that you're going to see that. Okay, so he had sent this. All right, so we are going to be looking at units. I believe this is where your tutor actually ended. So let me share my coding IDE with you. Please just give me a minute. All right, can you see my screen? Okay. So we are moving straight into CSS units. And what we mean by CSS units, we start talking about how we define the size. Had it been, should in case, let's say from, let's take an example so that you'll be able to understand what we mean by CSS unit and how we use them to define size. Now, when we talk about CSS units, we talk about we have relative units, we have absolute units, and with the relative units, we start talking about how we can define the size of a particular element in the form of percentiles, or we use other, should I say, keywords that are unique to CSS, like the EM and the REM, or maybe we use the viewport, to determine like the size of a particular screen, say maybe an iPad or something. So I'm just going to demonstrate how this works. So for the CSS units, for example, so like we said, CSS units are used to define the size of a particular element, particular CSS element, particular element in an HTML, like say in an HTML page, like maybe we can use it to define the margins in terms of maybe pixel for pictures, images. We can use these units to define the size of a layout, let's say a padding. We are going to see what all of this is. So you use CSS unit to define paddings, margins, and other layout properties, especially when we are developing our websites. So for the absolute units, we have the pixels. And these pixels could be seen as, let's say the, how would I put it? Let's say they are a standard unit of measurement that we use on a screen. For example, if we say 1 pixel, 1 px, 1 px actually means it's equivalent to what we say 1 pixel on a screen. A pixel is, how will I put it? Anyways, when I'm doing an example, we are going to see that. And we also have, apart from just pixel, we also have what we call points. You can actually measure the size of particular element in the form of points, but we are not really going to dive deeper into that. We are going to just look at the notions of pixel, and then we see how we can use them to actually define the fixed size of maybe a particular screen or a particular element on a web page. And we also have, you can also define it in inches. So it's just for you to know what you want to do and how you want to do it. You can also use inches, and you can, 1 inch is equals, you can like define it. You can use it even in centimeters. So you're just defining the size of something. We can also use centimeters and as well as millimeters, but sometimes CSS properties or CSS does not really allow, or would not want to use that to define our elements or our paddings and margins, because it will be a little bit confusing somehow, but it's still very possible to use those to define whatever thing you want to define, or element or margin or padding you want to define. And when we go further to talk about relative unit, like the EM, we actually use it to define the like it's relative to the font size of a parent element. So you can use like 1 EM to define the parent font size of a particular element. Let's say you have a group of elements in a div, in an HTML, and you want to define a particular font size for that section, for that div, that division on your web page. So you actually use to do so. We are going to see that too. And we have the rem. So the rem is actually is related to the root element. So it is relative to the root element of your HTML font size, your HTML page. Let's say the font size. So one rem one rem is equivalent to the root font size. So if you want to define the font size of the body of your page, let's say the body of your page, you can use the rem to do so. And we have the percentile. So we also use this percentage. It's also relative to the parent element size in terms of percentage. So if you want to define still, for example, like the example we have for that div, if you want to define the parent font size of that particular div, like everything that's in that div should follow a particular font size. So you can pass that definition in your CSS in terms of percentage. We are going to see that it can range from 1% right up to, from 0% right up to 100%. And the other one we have is viewport height. This viewport height is this VW is viewport width and VH is viewport height. So you can use it to determine the size, the view of the page per a given device that you actually use to do so. And we also have VM minimum. Those are other advanced concepts. We have VM minimum and VM max, where you can actually define, that is, you can actually define the smallest dimension of a particular viewport. So you can state the smallest dimension as well as you can state the highest dimension that you would want for if a content is to be displayed on larger screens and smaller screens. So you can use view min and view max to define those. So before going to demonstrate that, are there any questions? Is there a worry? Please, if there are, you can unmute your mic and ask your questions. Are there any questions? Okay. So let's move forward. So let's look at how we are going. Let's look at this exercise so you understand what I was explaining. Let's look at how you can style your text with what we have just explained. So let me open my VS Code and okay. Okay, can you see my screen? All right, so now I have code pre-written here already. So let me look at these and these. Okay, so following the various different types of styling that we have seen, we have seen inline styling, and we have seen the external styling. So let's say, for example, we want to, be able to use these particular ones that we have here. So for the pixel, the EM and the REM. Okay, this particular tree here. And then we see what results we get. So I'm going to display this page here. Let me say this is the page we want. Let me undo this one. Okay, let's start it back. And good. So let's write something here. Maybe let me see. Let me take a code here for okay. So let me follow this one, this particular one. Okay. So let's say, for example, I'll replace this code. I'll replace this code with HTML here. And I'll take off this part. And I'll see the body here. And then I'll take off this part. So okay, so I'll also take off this part, and I leave here HTML point and add it here. Okay. And I'm going to take off this other part. Okay. Alright, so
Don't do it, go next time again. Go carry my pillow. Keep my neck hot.
Okay, so we are going to be styling this page. So I'm going to display this page on the browser, and I'm going to get my live server. Okay, and I'll install it. And I'm going to put my autosave on. Okay, so our live server is on. I'm going to go live. Okay, so this is actually what we have here. Please, can you see my screen? So this is currently what we have here, following the default that we have. So this is another paragraph. This is the text of the paragraph. So we are going to be styling the body of this using our root element. We are going to use the root font size, where we are going to be looking at the pixel. So we are starting with the absolute unit. So we are going to do the absolute unit here using the pixels. And so I'm going to okay. So I'm going to be styling. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go, this is external link that I've used to actually connect this HTML to my CSS that I created before now. Please, if you don't know how to create your CSS, you just let me know. And if you don't know how, if you're having difficulties linking this, just let me know as well. So I'm going to be styling this. So I'm going to be styling this particular page. So here I am going to be styling from here. So we said for absolute units, we can use pixel to define the root font size of a particular element. So we want to define the root.
Hello, Monica.
Please, sorry about that. I had a glitch with my connection. So we are going to be using pixel. Let's say we want to define the body of our element, right, of our HTML page. So we want to define the body, and we want to define the font size, of all of what we have on the body. So we are going to be doing that. So please don't focus on my code. I use advanced tools. It just wants to auto-complete my things. So we have our curly braces, and then let's say we want the font size to be let's say say 16 pixels. So once we have 16 pixels, let's see the change we have here. So if I refresh this, yes, please just unmute and say something.
Sorry, I can't see your screen.
Oh, you can't see? Oh, sorry. Let me check that. Okay. This. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so I'm saying that we want to define let's say we want to define the root element of the font size using pixel, the font size of whatsoever thing we have presented here, this one here. So this is the code here, this one. So we are trying to define the font size of this. So we want to make it bigger, other than what is already here. So we are here and we want to define the font size of everything here. So we can call the body and try to define the font size of what we have in the body here. This is my code once just autocomplete everything. So we are going to do that. What this thing is. Okay, so we want to define the font size, and we want to make it say 20 pixels, for example, or 30. So let's put it like that, and we save. So you see, we have defined the font size using the absolute CSS unit. So we are giving it to all the parent. It's respecting. So there is this hierarchy that they used to say. If you have internal link, internal styling is greater than, they say internal styling is greater than external styling is, and they also say that IDs are greater than internal styling. Like if an ID, if a particular element has an ID, you try to style that ID, and if you give an overall styling to that ID, it's going to do what, respect that of the ID first before going to the internal styling that you have also given to that particular element, that kind of hierarchy. So this here we are trying to define the parent font, to define the root font size of the entire HTML. Like everything that will be found on the content of the page will be in the font size of 30 pixels. I don't know if it's understood. So let's try to define the font size for, sorry. So let's try to define the font size for the parent element using let's say, no, let's use EM to define a text that is inside a paragraph. So this one was to define the root font size. So we use this to define the root font size. So let's say here I want to define, so for absolute, so let's do the next one, which is relative units. Should I just write? Okay. So let's say we want to define this. So when we want to use this, let's say we come here, we add a section. Let's say we add a particular section here. Let's see, and we say something like, I don't know if you have done, let's say, how can I put this one? So let me define a class here. Okay, let me define a class here. So let's say we add a section here and we remove this other paragraph and put it inside. So I will remove this paragraph and put it inside. Okay, and I want to give this, I want to give this paragraph a class. So I give this paragraph a class called, let me say, EM text, right? So I can call it EM text. And here is another class here called the parent. So this is the parent div. So inside this parent div, we have our EM text. So this is just an illustration, please, so that you wouldn't have much to worry about. So once we have that, I can come here, and so you see we have defined this. You see that once we give it a class, it doesn't maintain, it wouldn't want to maintain the styling that we have. If we had given a style to this before, to this paragraph here before, this is another paragraph, it's trying to maintain what we have given as a class. So now let's style it. Let's style it here for a relative unit. So we are going to call that class. I don't know if I'm a bit advanced on this topic, but I just want to demonstrate. We are going to call that class em text, and we are going to give it a font size of say 2em, like 2 times the parent element size. So and if we save, you see, so we have defined the parent font size. So of that particular section. So is it understood? Is it clear? Any worries? So that we can...
I have not understood well.
You didn't understand? So okay. So this is what we are trying to talk about. We are talking about CSS unit, and we said that we use these units to actually explain to actually define the size of your margin, the size of padding, the size of all the layouts of your HTML page. This page here where you have welcome to my web page is your page, and we are trying to define, when we talk about margin, padding, so it's the distance from here to this end or from here to this end of the body of your HTML. So we are saying that with relative CSS unit, you kind of like use it to actually define, you can use it to define the root, the root font size of your HTML element, and the body is one of the HTML element we are using to define it. And we talked about pixels, we talked about inches, we talked about other things that you could use. So we are saying that for the purpose of this bootcamp, we are going to use pixel to demonstrate our example. So we want to define the entire font size of our body. So if, for example, if I come here and I put it 3 and I save, you notice what happens, right? You see it has actually reduced irrespective of whatever styling you have given to that particular element before. Remember, the welcome to my web page is an H1. Maybe if you have not seen H1, then I will still talk about it, but I'm trying to demonstrate how you define the root font size of your pages, the root font size of elements in your page. And if we put it back 30 and save it, this is what we mean by you are defining the root font size of your HTML web page. That everything that is found under the body should be in font size 30 pixel or 3 pixel, as small as 3. And now it's the same thing with the div I created here. This div here is just another section of the page. This particular one, if you look at from this hello world, this is a paragraph of text, and then if you look at this other paragraph down here that is saying this is another paragraph, you see that there is a section, there is a division, there is an enormous amount of space that is from the other one. So that is a section, that's a division. That's what that's what we talk about. That's what we say is a div. So it doesn't really mean anything, but it is trying to organize your page into sections, like a parent, child. So div here is like a parent, and then paragraph here is like a child element of that div. So we have defined this another paragraph to be on another section, which we want to style using the absolute unit, the absolute CSS unit. We are using the EM to style our text. So I'm using font size. Font size is one of the various CSS properties that we want to use. We want to use to demonstrate our example. So we have other CSS properties that you can actually want to use. So I don't know if it's understood. Is it a bit confusing? Should I explain again? So
understood it well, thanks.
okay, all right, no problem. You're welcome. And so for the other ones that we are still to see, let's say rem. So for rem, we might want to also define let's say we want to define this H1 here. And so for us to be able to use rem here, like we want to define something that is relative to the body that we have actually created here by putting 30 pixels. So I'll come here and define the rem for this H1. So let's say we want to use, oh, sorry. So this is our H1. So we want to define it using rem too. So we're using rem. So we're using the rem unit here. Would like to put the, I would like to define the font size of whatever element that is in the body, or that has the element H1 there, to have a font size of let's say 1.5 rem. So it's 1.5 times the root font size. So once I save, you're going to notice what happens to our H1. So you see that it has actually reduced the size, the font size of our H1, because the root font size is 30 pixels. So 1.5 times. So it's like 1.5 times the root element. The root font size is saying that the thing was H1. H1 has a particular font size. So it's going to divide that font size 1.5 times. That is the root font size of H1. I don't know if it's clear. Is it understood? So let's say our root font size here is 30 pixels, right? So it's going to reduce it. It's going to reduce it to 1.5 times the root font size of that our element of what it was. So it was 30 pixels. It has reduced it 1.5 times. Is it understood? Okay. So this is just a few examples to demonstrate how we can use CSS units to actually define the size of elements in our HTML, in our web pages that we build. So let's go ahead to talk about font size. Let's talk about fonts and text styling, which we have already seen. I'm just showing an overview here. So let's say that what I was actually writing here inside these curly braces before the values that I was giving to them is actually called properties. So those are CSS properties, and these CSS properties help us to be able to style our page in a way that we actually want. So if we want a particular text to appear in a particular format, we use that syntax to define what we have. So it's a property value pair, something like that. So if we want to define the family of, let's say, the font family of our HTML document, so we can come here and write the property font family here, and we we can do something like maybe, I don't know if this is how they spell Korea. Is it Korea or something? Let me see. Is this Korea? No, that is not it. Let's use a common one, sans serif, the most common ones that we know. Okay. So we have defined the font family of our page to be a sans. So it's a particular, it's a specific kind of family name. When we talk about font family, a specific kind of family name you want to give to all the content on your web page. If you are defining it in the body of your web page. So this is how you can define the font family of whatever property, whatever element that you want to give it that styling. And the font size, remember the size of a text, we have just seen that the font size can appear in any CSS unit type. So it can have the absolute unit, which is a pixel. It can have the relative unit, which is in EMs and REMs. So we also have the font weight. So if you want to define the boldness of this our particular H1, so you can give the font weight. So let's say font weight. So we can leave it to be let's say bold or bolder. So once we pass this value called bolder here, and I save, you see it's darker. It's darker than the other one, so it's bolder. Let's also look at the next one. You might want to change the position of a particular text, like this one here. Text align. You see that our header here is in the center. So it's in the center. This our heading here. Welcome to my web page. Is in the center. So you can use it to align left, right, and center. So you might want to put it to the left. You just need to change this value here to the left, the right the same. So text decoration. So if you want to add maybe an underline to our heading, we might want to do a text decoration to underline. So you notice if I save this, what will happen to our heading is that it's going to be underlined. Oh, sorry. So once I save this, it's going to be underlined. So that is the way we have added a text decoration to underline or to draw a line through. And we also have text transformation is used to change something to uppercase or lowercase. So that one too is simple that you can just add. Let's say we want to change our maybe this one here. So text transform uppercase, and I save it. So capitalize each word. So I just want to capitalize each word. I just use this text transform. So it's notice it capitalized. So that's how we use CSS to do one or two things to our website. We might also want to, also go ahead to look at, that's the next thing. You can look at this, the line spacing between letters, letter spacing. You can define letter spacing if you really want to, space out the letters, and the line height between each, let's say, a paragraph that you write. So you can define that. So the exercise we're supposed to do is what I've just used to demonstrate in the lesson notes. So now, one of the very last thing we are going to touch is the background. So now with CSS stylings, you can use backgrounds. Comes with several properties that you can use to do many other things on your HTML page. So we can apply backgrounds not only to the HTML page. You can apply them to, your images. You can use this background, CSS backgrounds, to add colors to your maybe text or page. You can add images. You can add. You can do so many things. I'm just going to use a few minutes to demonstrate them. Okay. So let's say, for example, we don't like the background color of this our particular page that we are working on, and let's say, or we inputted a particular image and we don't like it. So I'll come to the body of my let me say of this page that we are currently working on. So let's say we want to change this background. So I'll just come here, just write the property called background color. So background color, maybe I just put it light gray. Once I save it, you notice we have changed the background of this particular page. So that's just how you can use backgrounds. That's how you can use backgrounds to actually change the background color. But you can also define background in terms of hash values, like their hash values. For example, if I don't want gray, I want something like hash, let me see, for a, we call them hex codes. So you can use simple colors that you know, and you can as well use hex codes. And most hex codes, they come in this kind of hex format. Let me see, this one. Let me see, F2, F2, F2. Yeah, so F2, 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 and I save this one. Is going to give me pure white. I don't want pure white, and I want to take something like this. Something closer to pink. So that is the hex code for it. And I save, you see. You notice we have transformed this using our hex code. You can also use the RGB to add a background color. So we can add a background color using RGB. There are many ways. So RGB values, you can add it using not only hex, you can also use RGB value. So let's say let me demonstrate that one here on the X one. Background color RGB, let's say, let me just take the default that is there, 240, which is white, and I save. You notice what happened. The background color of the H1 section has turned into white because of the RGB that I have used. There's also RGBA. We're not going to go too deep into that. And let's also look at how we can, use to add images. So let's go to our div here. So let's call our div and add an image there. So which is our parent div. Let's call the class. Okay, so let's add this styling and add a background image. So let's add a background image to this one. So we can also choose whether we don't want the image, so no repeat. Let me see. Let me see. I'm looking for a particular image that I can add here. So let me see. Okay, I don't know if I carried any image inside this my source. But for us to be able to add a background image, we just need the URL of our image. And I don't know if this link has a particular image for us. If it doesn't, because I didn't put any image in my folder. Let me just save this file and see. Okay. So well, that is it. We have added a background image behind our div. You see, I just added this link because I don't have a particular image to display. So is it clear? Are there any questions? Are there any questions so far? So we have seen some properties, and now there are a few ones that we did not look at, but I'm just going to and here we're supposed to see how you can add this image and make it maybe repeat or non-repeat, those kind of small properties that you can add. But I'm going to end here because of time, and I'm going to call on Rue. She's going to continue with the box model and CSS grids. So I'm going to end here, but before I leave, are there any questions in regards to what we have seen? Are there any questions? Is it understood? Please can unmute while we are waiting for Ru to take over. Okay, if there are no questions, Ru, are you there?
Sure. Thank you, Maya.
Okay, all right, so you're welcome. So I will just stop presenting.
Hello,
now.
everyone. Can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me? Great. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Okay.
Not yet.
We are going to go through the box model and layouts. You can't see my screen?
It's clear now.
Please unmute, guys, and tell me if you can see my screen or not.
I've seen.
Can you see it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so guys, we're going through the box model and layouts. Okay. Just go down. Okay. Okay, guys, I just want to scroll down to the topic. Okay. Then let's just start with the block level versus the inline elements. Level and inline elements, arranging the visual elements because this. Let me just arrange. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. And then this has to come to the bottom.
So when we talk about the box model, especially when we have started looking at the sections and different divisions on our CSS, on our HTML website, our static pages, for example, where we talk about the box model, we try to look at it as it's try the structure of different HTML elements. So we say the box model in CSS is like a fundamental concept that describes the structure of HTML elements. So when we talk about this, we start looking at four main parts. And these four main parts, they have to do with um, the content. We talk about the content areas, right? When we talk about the content areas, like this is the area where you have the content of elements, where the content of the elements is displayed, like the paragraph that we did earlier. The paragraph that we did earlier. Please, Ru, if you're there, you let me know so that I can leave the mic. You continue. So, like the paragraph area that we had for, say, our web page for the paragraph. So you see that area, that particular area where we have a picture, for example, it's a content area, that div. The div, you see, the content area of that div is just this particular area that it has occupied on our page. So that's a part of a CSS. We'll talk about the box model. So that's one main part of it. It tries to talk about the content area on your page. Each one also has a content area. It occupies this particular area where it has a white background. And so we also talk about the borders. When we start talking about the borders, borders is a borders is like the how will I put it? It's like the surrounding. So it's like so the border, it surrounds like the padding and the content area. So I'm going to show, let me see, an image that really describes this. So for example, if I do, let me do something on this page. So F12, if I open developer tools and I scroll down, good. So this is the box. This is something like the box model, and it describes. You see, we have a content area. We have, when we talk about the borders, this is the border here. Remember, this is the border here. It talks about the how it surrounds at a particular element, like a content area. If we talk about padding, if I give this particular paragraph padding from this end, it's going to shift maybe towards the right. So padding right means that the thing should shift towards the left hand side here like this. I don't know if you can see this particular image that I'm demonstrating. So that's another main part when we start talking about the box model. And another one is the padding. So we talk about the content area, we talk about the border, we talk about the padding. Now the padding here, it's the space between the content area and the border. So had it been, this is our content area here. This is our content area here. So they are telling you that the space in between the content area and the border, it's what we call the padding. So let's say this is a content area here. You see, when I highlight on this is content, and this is the content area, and the border, this is the border, the space that surrounds the padding. You see, the space that surrounds the padding here, it's what we call that's what they call the borders, the border. So you look at it from this end, the space that surrounds the padding, the space that surrounds the padding and the content area. So this You see, this is content here, this space here, this space, this is the border of this particular element here. And the other one is the margin. The margin is the space between the border and other elements. So let's say the space between the border and other elements. The border is the space that surrounds the padding and the content area. So this space here is the margin from here to this end. You see, I don't know if you can see my mouse pointer. So the margin is a space that is between the border and other elements. So let's say the end of this page, you can call it the margin. Maybe you have margin top here. The space from here to this space is the margin. You see, and other elements. So this is an element here. The space between here. It's also you can see it as the margin. Is it understood? So I'll talk a little bit about the box model properties. So when we start talking about the box properties, we start talking about key properties. Most of the times we use the width and height. So just to set the width and height of a content area, we are going to see that as an example. Ru, are you there? Okay. All right. So okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm there.
Oh,
You were talking
okay.
about the box model.
Yeah, I was trying to explain what the box model
that's fine.
is.
You can finish up because I was on the inline element and the block. So you can finish up and then I'll take it from there.
Okay, all right, no problem. Okay, so like I was saying, this particular diagram is used for illustration. And so I was talking about the box model properties. The very first property that we want to talk about is the width and height. So we use the width and height to set the width and height of the content area. Like if you want the content of this particular, let's say the body, because all of this from where we have pink everywhere is the body of this our page. And if you actually want to set the particular width and height of that area, we can use this is there you can use to set the margins of a particular element on your web page, and it's also in pixels. So we also talk about not only the box properties, we talk about box sizing. So you can also box size, or you can box size you can put a default box model with width and height that you want to include just the content area of your page. Like here you might want to, so you call that box sizing. You might want to give it just that content area where you have content on your page, you pass a particular height or a particular width. So you can box size a content area. You can also do that with the borders as well. So with the borders, you add the width and the height to include just the padding and the borders, not the margin. So we are going to be working with these three, four properties: the content area, the padding, and the margin. So I'm going to do a small demo just so that you see how it works, and then Rui is going to continue. So I'm still going to be doing that with this our paragraph here. And so I'm going to share my entire screen. I'm going to share my entire screen and quote. Please just let me know if you can see my screen. So we are going to be adding the height, the width, the padding, the borders, the margin, and we're going to do a box sizing of our beautiful butterfly that we have on our web page. So I'm going to open up my code here. So and here we want to size this. Remember this. So here I'd even given a margin already. Sorry that I really went ahead to do this. But if I put this, so I'm just going to continue from here. So I'm going to be using the height. So I'll add the width. So I'm going to be adding the width. I'll put it 300 pixels, remember, and I'm going to save. So just observe exactly what happens to our image, our div, such that you will know when the width of a particular element. So I'm going to save it. So you see, it has reduced it to pixels, 300 pixels. So it was actually set to default, which it's covering all the, it's taking all of the page, all of the body of the page where it occupies, where it fills. And so I'm going to add a particular height to it. So this height, I'm going to leave it as at 100 pixels. Sorry, my laptop is low. I want to put it on charge. Okay, sorry for that. So I'm going to change the height to 100 pixels. So I don't want it to inherit the height. So 100, and I'm going to save it. So you see, once you do that, it's changing the size. Remember, we said you use the box models to actually, start changing the size, start defining the, the content areas in terms of height and width. But this one is too much, so we are going to leave it at maybe 10 pixels. No, it's too low. Sorry. let me see. And okay, and let's also do the width, the padding. The padding is already there. So I'll also do I'll also do the borders. So you just see, I'll just increase. So let me leave this to 0 so that you see the effect once we have it. Let me just leave it to 0, 0. Here, let me remove this first. Okay, let me put this one to 500 and 500 so that you see the effect of the borders. Okay, now I'm going to add the border there. I'm going to add our border, and the border there, it's going to take 1 pixel. You know what is a border, right? You know, it's the lines that you add around a particular box. Maybe if you're doing Word or Excel, you want to add a border to your table, you add something to it in terms of color. So I'm going to add let me say 1 pixel solid black, or let me see something color that is not here, is slate. Yeah, and I save it. Just look at what happens to it. Let me see 10 pixels. Let me see if 10 pixels will be affected. It's not affected. I cannot see it. Okay, let me use black. Solid black. Okay, good. So you see this is the border that has been added to it. You see, this is what the box model can do just in CSS. You see, now we don't even write the HTML anymore. And so we are trying to see how we can use these CSS properties to manipulate the feel, the looks of our HTML pages. That is how we use these properties. So let me use the margin. The margin property is already there. But what I'm going to do for you to be able to see it, add the value of the margin so that you see the effect. So you see, we actually defined our margin as what we said. The margin is a space between the border. So the border here from the body, this where my screen is ending, the space between the border and other elements. So remember that our div was starting from a particular place. So I'm going to undo and then save again. You see, our div was having a default border. There and other elements, the border and other elements. So it means we're counting 100 pixels from here right up to this border here of this particular element. That's what the border is. And when we talk about the padding, So I'm also going to add for the padding, so you see the effect. So you see the effect here. So we said the padding was a space between the content area and the border. The content area and the border. So if I undo and save, you see there is a particular padding. And when I add it, it gives me a very big amount of space. So look at the amount of space it has given me. So the amount of space here between the content area and what the border. So 100 gives me from like it acts. So let's say I'll undo this and save. So you see the content area here, it's this particular, this inside this div is our content area of focus. So the content area is not just the body, but it's also the where we target a particular element. And when you talk about the padding as a space between the content area and the borders, so we are talking about the space where this paragraph is inside the div and this area, the content area here. So when I put it to 100, when I put this particular padding to 100, you actually see a change. You see the space between this and the content area has increased from 10 to 100. So you see it has reduced back. That is what we mean by the padding. And the margin is from the border and the element that we are actually targeting. And then the last one that we want to talk about is it's the box sizing. So we'll look at the box sizing property, and we want to look at the box sizing, the border size, and the content area, the content box. So I will just put this one as border box. So I'll put this at border box, and then notice what happens to our div when I save. So you see border box, you see what happened to it. So border box specifies the behavior of the height and the width properties that we had defined. So when we talk about border box, it sets when we talk about box sizing, we try to use it to set, especially when we want to set the border, helps us to define the width and the height, including the padding and the border. So if you look at this particular thing here, you see that it includes the padding and the borders of this this element here. Just this element here is the div. So box sizing helps to define the width, the height, all of that put together, and the padding and the border. So it leaves out the margin. It doesn't really touch the margin. But when you talk about the content area, where you talk the box sizing with the content, it always sets the height and the width, no margin, no border, no padding. I don't know, is it clear? Is it understood, the concept of the box model? Is it understood? Are there any questions?
Yeah, so I just want to ask about under H1, the background color. So the number 240, 240, 240. So what does it mean really?
Okay.
What does it mean?
Okay. Okay. All right. Here I was trying to define the background color of a particular element. We said that you can define the background color of elements in many ways. So you can use the hex value, where we try to define the background color of our body here. Particular here, this is what we call the hex value, where we also use it to set a particular color to our images. Or we can also use a name value, like we use the name of the color, right? The English name of the color blue to set, to actually set the color of our element here. Like here we said it was blue, and we use blue here. We could add, we could as well use the RGB value, which is 00255 to set blue. So that is the RGB, the RGB value. So if you have done physics before, I think this RGB should be familiar, because in physics they talk about RGB. So we start talking about the colors: green, red, green, blue, violet, indigo, all of that. So it's the same kind of concept that they have used here to demonstrate colors. So for for this RGB is just the same. I used it to define the background color, to set the background color using values, using the red, green, blue, how will I say it, values. It's like, how will I call it, um so this RGB is, it's a color model that represents the colors that uses a 3-value pair. So like if you see here, I've used 240, 240, 240. It's a 3-value pair, where arrow stands for red, it ranges from 0 to 255. And then G starts for green, it also ranges from 0 to 255. And the D stands for blue, it also ranges from 0 to 255. That is why if you look at blue here, you see the last, if you just, when I hover on it, look at the box right up here, you see that it ranges, this is blue, from 0 to 255. So we have 000, 00255, which is the color model that represents colors using 3 values in CSS. So you can value a certain amount of blue for a second value, and a certain amount of sorry, a certain amount of red, a certain amount of green, and a certain amount of blue for that particular element that you want to color. So that is how we use them to represent the intensity of each color component that we are trying to, on the elements that we are trying to style. I was just using that to demonstrate that you can represent colors in many different ways, not only using the name of that particular color, but at the same time you can use the 3-value color scheme that CSS also gives us room to use. Is it clear? Are you there?
Yes, sir, it's clear. I understand.
All right. So, and about the box model, is it also clear as well? Okay, so we have talked about the margin. So let's look at let's look at I don't know, it's really late now, and then we'll continue the next session. Access displays and visibility, and then we'll also look at CSS positioning. Just unmute. Please, you can unmute.
Maya? Maya?
Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah, it's late. I was just wondering if we can just finish the topic on block elements and inline elements. And then
Okay.
next time we're gonna meet, we can continue with Flexbox and Grid.
Okay.
Is that okay?
All right. So please come again. I didn't get the last words you said.
Oh, I was saying, is it okay?
I heard inline elements.
Yes, and block level.
Okay. All right. So please just bear with us. Let us just look at inline elements and block level elements, and then we can call it a night. All right.
Okay,
so
I'm just gonna share my screen.
we start talking about block level and inline level. Block level and inline level elements. Now we first already know what elements are. When we talk about elements in CSS, we start looking at how they can be classified into categories, and this category is what we are going to look at: inline element and block level elements. Now, for inline elements, these elements, they actually occupy only the spaces needed for their content, right? Only the spaces needed for their content. And what do I mean by that? So, like, for example, if we have if we want to include the maybe an image, for example, the element called image. So I'm just going to put that here. So they do not start on a new line. Just maybe I'll just do an example here. They do not start on a new line, and they can be placed next to other inline elements, no matter how you do it. So let's look at the element image. I'll just okay. So I'll just use this particular image here, and once I save it, you notice what I'm saying. They only occupy the space needed for their content. They don't go anywhere. They can be placed in line along with other inline elements. And so once I save this, you see that our page is going to load. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, maybe I should just change this here and see if I can find this particular element, this particular image. Okay, it's not there. That image is not there. I don't have any particular image here. Okay, let me just put an image somewhere. Let me add a file here. Let me just add an image, please. All right, so I'll add just this particular image. I'll add it here. Good. So now I would call it here. One, two. Okay, so this particular image, I'll call it here, and I'll save it. So notice that they occupy just this. No styling on it. You see how big this particular image is. So it has occupied just the space needed for that particular element. And we can add other elements in line to it. We can add another thing closer to it, maybe a paragraph. It's not going to change. So, but I'm going to put this particular image inside maybe I should just leave it here and style it. Okay, so that it doesn't. Okay. I just want to style it. All right. So I have just styled it. I don't want it to be big. So it occupies, that's what we mean by inline elements. So let's say in this other paragraph here, we can put an inline element like, let's say span. So we want to span this, our paragraph here. So we use span like a generic inline container, for example, to hold something. So let's say for a text, so I'll come here and add span here. So for example, I will do span here. Span this particular text. This is another paragraph. And I'll put it here. And notice what happens once I put it here. So you see, but before it was outside, it was Okay, so let me just put it here.
So it doesn't really, sometimes it doesn't really gives a particular change sometimes, but most of the times when we want to use global attributes, especially to style, if you want to style maybe this particular class, that is where our span can actually have some kind of use. But what I really want to demonstrate here is the anchor link. Anchor, it's an inline element because you don't always have to go to a new line to start them. So I will just anchor this paragraph here. So anchor href, and we'll not link it to anything, so we'll just leave it there. And so we are making this paragraph a link. So you see we have anchored this link. You see, so this is an inline element. Inline elements, they only occupy the space needed for their content and they do not go on a new line. So we are trying to change this particular paragraph into a link. And so I've changed just the paragraph. This is a paragraph. This is another paragraph. And so we have changed just the paragraph section into a link as well. We can also change the image. So anchor, we have strong to emphasize a bold text. They are inline element. Emphasize to put italics. They are still inline elements and all of that. So any element that only occupies the content that the space of the space needed for their content is an inline element, and they do not necessarily always start on the next line, like unlike paragraphs that we have. Now for block level elements, block level element occupies the full width unless the full width that is available unless we specify. For example, if you look at you see the background, the element H1 that we actually defined a background for it and put as white. You see it actually occupied a full width of the page, unless if we don't specify like how we specified for the div using our CSS styling. You see that it would have, this image would have occupied the entire page, So they start on a new line and they contain other block level elements and even other inline elements like the link, the image, the anchors, all of that, the strong, emphasize, and span elements. So if we use, this is an H1, which we have defined the background, and you can see for yourself that it has occupied the full width of this whole thing, of this whole page. So unless we actually specify it, otherwise it's not going to change, occupy the whole page. It will. So we have H1, we have divs. Once you start defining a particular property in a div, like what we did here, this particular div, if I don't style it, if I remove the style that I gave to this div, like if I comment it, you will notice what happens. So if I
if I comment this div, you'll notice what happens to it. So just notice what happens if I save. So you see, everything is gone. The image is gone, and the div has occupied, like this thing occupies the full space that is available apart from the link that I gave as inline. That was an inline. That was something inline element that I added to this other element. So that's why we said block level elements, they contain other block level elements or other inline elements. So you see that here, if we look at the code I have included, this is the code here. I have included an inline element in a block level element. So a paragraph is a block level element, a div is a block level element. But our anchor tag that I placed here is an inline element. So a block level element can contain inline elements. And some of these common block level elements are the div, which is a generic block level container that holds other elements. We have the paragraph as in paragraph. I'll have H1 right up to H6 for headings. We have underlined listing when we do list. For example, if you look at this my list here, you see these are all block level elements. If you look at headings, all of them, they are block level elements. They will start on a new line. They can always contain other block level elements. So we have on ordered and ordered list. If you look at this code that I wrote here, so this for unordered list, we use this particular UL element which has other sub elements for list, and for the ordered one we have other list items inside. So that is just a little bit of what is all about inline and block level elements. Before we look at an example and then we mark the session done for today, is there any question? Is there any question, something you want me to explain? Or let's just look at the example and then okay, so let's look at an example. So I'm going to add a span to welcome. So I'm going to span welcome. This is the last thing we are seeing tonight, please. Just be patient. Okay, so I'm undoing the styling here. Okay. So I've added a span here. Let's just look at the example here for, let's make a block level element. So with our CSS, you can actually make a block level element inline. So for the heading, I would come there because I have added an inline block level element. So now we can come to our H1 here and we use the property called display. So we can display it and make it what? Inline. So if we display it and make it inline, you see what happens. So we have made it to be inline. We have made it to be inline it's no longer respecting the block side of the particular element. So we have actually changed the position. We have changed everything about the H1 element that we had written before. You see, it was center. We have displayed it center. We have made text align center, but we have displayed it now. We have changed it from what it was, which is a block level element, to something else. We have made it inline to be an inline. And now we can also make an inline element block level. So for example, we actually still on the H1, there was a span. So I'll just do it under here. There was a span on the H1. So if I call the span, I would want to I'll define a color to it first. You see, I have changed that one, and now I want to make it. So I want to make it block. So notice what happens. Notice what happens to it once I save. So you see, so you can actually change these elements in whatever way that you want. You can make an inline element a block, and you can make a block element an inline one, just with the CSS property called display. So we are going to end the session here, but before that, I don't know if there are any questions. Is it understood? If there are no questions, Ruth, maybe you say 1 or 2 words, then we can call it tonight.
Thank you, Maya. We'll finish the rest of the topics on Friday in our next session on layouts and responsive design. I think we can call it a night.
Okay, thank you everyone for staying with us right up to this hour. It has not been easy, and network 2 is not leaving us focus. So you can also prepare your questions and ask in the group, and we are going to respond to them. Centadesk, is there any words from you? Hello, Centadesk, are you there?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. No words actually. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Maya. Maya, thank you so much. Ron, yeah, I find it difficult to pronounce your name. Thank you so much.
You call me Ru. Just a few more words. Guys, just make sure that you read the notes before you get into the next session. It'll be way easier for you to understand. So I encourage you to read the notes. And then when you get in the session, at least you'll be able to have to question the things that you do not understand. So please read the notes. I think that's all.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.